Hello, welcome to Automation Car Builds. Well, I suppose I'm calling this series that for the time being. Anyway, this is a series where basically I'm going to build cars and then sort of show them off. Sort of build a competitor to a real life car and yeah, so just ask you which you'd prefer, the car that I've built or the real life car. So today I've built sort of a competitor to the Toyota 2000 GT. I forgot how to do this now. It is that one. There we go. So, 1967, same year as the 2000 GT debuted, and I suppose we should start from the first tab. Well, first of all, styling. I suppose you could also say 240Z competitor. Let's just go with both of them. As you can see from here, aluminium body with a monocoque chassis. Steel panels, obviously, front longitudinal engine with double wishbones all around, sort of trying to give the sportiest sort of car I can for the time. Obviously, you know, no multi-link suspension and stuff or carbon fibre, but yeah, this is about as good as you're gonna get, really. As monocoques are the best. I mean, you can't see sort of how they compare here, but yeah, monocoques the best in terms of actually sort of sportiness, I believe. I don't know. I'm fairly certain that's the case, but yeah, point is basically as sporty as it can get. Styling wise, I mean, it's all very square. I'll be honest, the wing mirrors mounted on the bonnet because that was mandatory in Japan up until 1983, I think it was. Yeah, that's basically it. Not really a lot to say about this car. I've sort of gone for a rather square front and sort of a more rounded rear, which, well, I don't know, it's sort of inconsistent, like, you know, two different people designed the front and the rear, but I don't know, I quite like it, the way it looks. It's simplistic. I think that looks good. So yeah, body I went with was the 1960 Coupe, sort of a 240Z body style. Just went with a white colour with chrome wheels, and yeah, these nice wire wheels. The engine, we've got an 82mm bore with a 63mm stroke. That means that you can rev it quite high, as you can see, even though it's in 1967. It can rev up to 8,100 RPMs without having any issues with the pistons, and 9,000 RPM with the crank. 153 horsepower, so 3 more horsepower than the 2000 GT. This does mean that it's quite a racing engine with a very high cam profile. Obviously naturally aspirated. We have gone with a single barrel. We could go with a 2-barrel carburetor, or even a 4-barrel. I kind of want to go with a 4-barrel. Yeah, that doesn't really make a difference, that's the thing. And yeah, we just get restricted by that. So yeah, really a single barrel is sort of the best. But yeah, performance intake, triple carburetors, running on regular fuel. Now, I mean, it is quite early, and I could technically go on super leaded, but I kind of like the challenge of trying to build a performance car on regular fuel, along with, you know, generally just being better for the environment. I tend to go with quite a lean fuel mixture. If possible, I do like to go with 15, which basically means there's barely any fuel going into the cylinder. Yeah, I'm just a big fan of trying to make fuel economy sort of based cars. Yeah, I could sort of raise the rev limiter slightly, get a bit more performance out of it, almost get it to 100. In fact, if I do that, I do get to 100. May have to readjust the gearing after that. Tubular headers. I could do that and get quite a big bonus in terms of everything. In fact, it's actually cheaper as well. Let's do that then. Perfect. I suppose I should show the other menu too. So yeah, intake and everything are barely being restricted by it, and the exhaust only slightly, which is basically at optimum. Baffled exhaust. and but yeah, that barely makes a difference. We are going to keep an exhaust on it. In fact, putting that on would oh no, that one is better. Despite, I know reverse flow does have worse airflow, but there we go. But yeah, everything's basically sort of rather nicely tuned for sort of ideal performance. Just also does sound quite nice. So yeah, onto the drivetrain, which, well, we may have to readjust now since I've raised the rev limiter. 0 to 60 in 7 seconds, which, you know, in 1960, in fact we can get down to 6.9. Oh yeah, because we've lengthened all gears slightly. But yeah, 6.9. Quite a bit of wheel spin, I'll be honest, but that's just because it's a sporty car. It needs to contain, it's grown to contain 150 horsepower, clearly. But no, 6.9, I mean, that's still fairly quick by today's standards. Tyres, I mean, it's got 235s all around, which is incredibly wide for 1960, or the 1960s. I mean, even stuff like American muscle cars wouldn't have had quite that, well, maybe about that wide tyres. Brakes, solid discs all around with 2 pistons on the front, 1 piston's on the rear. It's well balanced. If I go a bit higher, then it actually makes it handle slightly worse, and we'll stop from 60 or 100 kilometers an hour in 30 meters. So yeah, it stops well. No oversteer at high speed. It's well, safe and very drivable. Weighs 860 kilograms, by the way. You could go with a semi-clad underbody, which, I mean, would help aerodynamics wise, but does add quite a lot of weight for relatively little benefit, I'd argue. Yeah, the interior, well, 2-seater. We could make it a 2+2, but I decided not to, with a sport interior. So, well, no, it's fairly comfortable, but is sort of prestigious as well. Premium AM radio. No power steering to sort of give the sportiest feel possible. Standard 60 safety. Progressive springs with gas monotube dampers and passive sway bars, obviously. Suspension setup, I mean, I'm still learning about sort of how to make the most out of this, out of sort of new suspension sort of comfort. The drop test tuning. Basically, the car's dropped from 1 centimeter, from 1 centimeter bump. Also driven off a 1 centimeter bump, and this had a suspension response. So really, you want the front to go down first, and they sort of meet up and sort of line up. Which, I mean, I kind of do. I could probably make it a bit more comfortable and a little more sporty, but you know, I'm still learning this. And suspension's rather low. Yeah, obviously compared to other cars of the time, there's quite tight fitment too. Like compared to a 2000 GT, which actually has quite a lot of gap between the wheel and the wheel arches. There's not really a lot else to say here. Yeah, 156 horsepower basically. It's a fairly small car at 2.35 meters. Oh wait, no, that's the wheelbase. But yeah, at 4 meters, that's still fairly small. Yeah, there's not really much else to say here. If we go into detailed stats, I mean, you can see that, well, drivability, I mean, it all comes in suspension and wheels. Obviously, because it's a rather sporty car, then things like this don't really help. Also, the fact that it's quite an old car, so obviously it suffers in things like the circle test, and it's got quite a lot of power that the wheels can't really grip with, despite having a automatic locking differential. When it comes to sportiness, I mean, obviously the handling and brakes help it a lot more. In fact, yeah, it helps in the fact that it's got quite a sporty suspension setup, so tuned to oversteer a bit more than the than sort of someone looking for a drivable car would like. Yeah, obviously the lock differential doesn't help, or the automatic locking differential, but that's to reduce wheel spin, help with 0 to 60 time. I mean, obviously these stats don't really matter. 16.6 UK miles to the gallon, which isn't bad for a 1960s sports car. In fact, you can actually get slightly better in some cases. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, there's not really much else to say in the market. I mean, it does well in sort of hyper and super, track and sports. It just generally does quite well in this sort of area, which is good, so that's where I'm aiming for. Onto the Top Gear test track now, and it's going to be fairly quick. So, a lap time around the test track of 1:32.96, which, well, according to real life Top Gear test track times, puts it about on at the same speed as Mercedes-Benz SLK 350. Yeah, I don't think so. I think this is a slightly shrunken down version of the track, but you know, it still proves that this is quite a fast and sort of sporty car. So anyway, I suppose now the question is, would you prefer this over a Toyota 2000 GT? In my opinion, I think this is slightly better looking, and probably a lot faster. I don't think I could find a 0 to 60 time for 2000 GT, but I suppose you can find that yourselves. But yeah, it's sort of, yeah, I know it doesn't have the sort of racing heritage the 2000 GT has, but I still think at the time if this was shown, I don't know, I think it'd still be fairly popular. Obviously the styling may not be sort of as in the times, sort of the front maybe looks a bit more sort of early 70s than late 60s, but it's still a fairly similar time. And again, the rear, I mean, rears aren't really my strong suit, so it does look slightly odd there. But yeah, anyway, I'll think of a proper name for it, or maybe you guys can name it. I just came up with that randomly. Anyway, yeah, thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and until next video, goodbye.